Welcome to Treyarch. We are a studio of about, call it 250, 300 people, and we've been making a lot of games, making a lot of Call of Duty games.
For the team at Treyarch, we've been working with a core team for many years, and of course we've brought a lot of new talent on over the years, and it really helps you to kind of reinvent yourself and reshape the game. Every game that we release is the next proudest moment, because I think every development cycle we learn new things. The team pushes itself into new territory, reflects new creative muscles. For me, what I get the most pride out of is just seeing how the team develops and how the team executes on doing something bigger and better each time. The pressure of making a Call of Duty game is always, it's there, it's exciting, it's thrilling. I mean, for us, part of I think the magic of making games is that it challenges us every time to have to rethink and reinvent ourselves.
It's safe to say that Treyarch is a developer that pretty much every gamer has heard of. Founded in 1996 by Peter Ackerman and Dogan Koslu, the Santa Monica-based studio spent their formative years on sports games and movie tie-ins. You can thank Treyarch for the excellent Spider-Man 2, for example. These days, however, the team are essentially synonymous with a little franchise called Call of Duty. You might be familiar with it. Their work on CoD started in 2005 with the Call of Duty 2 expansion Big Red 1. But their largest contribution to the franchise's lore by far is the ultra-popular Zombies mode, which they played a vital role in creating. Treyarch has now grown to the point where they've become an indispensable part of the game's universe. From Call of Duty III to Black Ops IV, the studio has continually pushed the envelope on what a CoD game can be. In this documentary, we'll be looking at the history of Treyarch's work with Activision and the Call of Duty franchise. We'll be speaking to some of the team at Treyarch to get their thoughts on how Call of Duty has grown and changed under their direction, as well as a number of YouTubers and influencers who predominantly made names for themselves by playing the likes of World at War and Black Ops. We'll be assessing Treyarch's overall contribution to Call of Duty lore, examining some of their most enduring contributions to the franchise, before diving into the studio's present to talk Black Ops IV and Battle Royales. These days, of course, the likes of Zombies and Black Ops are among the most important and beloved mainstays of the Call of Duty franchise, something Treyarch are clearly very proud of, and rightly so. The team has picked up a ton of critical and commercial acclaim along the way.
The trophies are really just the tip of the iceberg. One of the things that we've tried to do is sort of use our hallways as our own sort of like living museum. There are some props that have magically fallen off the truck. So this is the wraps, and this is something that was used in the live action commercial shoot. And even if you meander over here, if you think back to Black Ops I DLC, there was a Zombies experience on Moon, and that was the ray gun featured in the commercial. Sadly, that fell off the truck too. Strange that they just find their way here. Living our heritage in the hallways really kind of began with Black Ops I, but around the same time, we thought that this was a much bigger idea, so we teamed up with a company called I.Am8bit in Hollywood. And we brought them in to paint murals of every Call of Duty game that we've been involved with, going back to Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1, Call of Duty 3, World at War. We are now at a point where we are struggling to find enough hallway space to represent all of the Call of Duty work that we've done. It's truly ranks among one of those problems to have.
Activision acquired Treyarch way back in 2001 and were looking for the right team to create an engaging expansion in which players battle through specific missions during World War II from the perspective of the American 1st Infantry Division. A studio called Grey Matter Interactive were originally tasked with development on the expansion, which would eventually become known as Big Red 1 in conjunction with Treyarch. Towards the end of work on the project, Grey Matter was merged into Treyarch. Some of that original team still remains at the studio today.
Welcome to our Hall of Fame. And much like the mural hallway, this hallway is meant to celebrate our heritage. You go back through our history, and it's like there are members of the studio that worked on Call of Duty United Offensive, but it's like Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1, Call of Duty 3, World at War. You see this heritage of the studio beginning to evolve.
Big Red 1 was a hit with critics and gamers everywhere, so it's not surprising that when the time came to begin production on Call of Duty 3, Treyarch were called up to start work on their first full CoD game.
When I came to Call of Duty in 2005, Call of Duty was becoming Call of Duty, so it was a really exciting time. There was a lot going on, and there was a lot of opportunity to do a lot of things for the first time. It was a culture or an environment that was just charged with a great deal of excitement.
Announced during E3 2006, Activision confirmed that Call of Duty 3 would be developed using Treyarch's own internal engine, NGL, and that it would have the honour of being a launch title for the PlayStation 3 and Nintendo Wii. Unsurprisingly, Call of Duty 3 was a hit. Released in November 2006, it went on to be the best-selling title that month in the US. By the end of 2006, the game had shipped over 1 million copies in the US alone. Just 1 year later, this figure would double. This would be impressive enough in any circumstances, but when you consider Treyarch actually managed to make Call of Duty 3 in just 8 months, you start to get an insight into just how dedicated the studio was to delivering a quality product in a ridiculously small amount of time, turning what could have easily been a filler game into a strong title in its own right. It's safe to say that Treyarch understood how to make a Call of Duty game. Treyarch's next Call of Duty offering was no easy feat. The team had the unenviable task of following on from Modern Warfare, a title many consider to be one of the greatest games ever made and a definitive FPS experience. How do you follow up on a generation-defining global smash? There aren't many developers that would even try, but Treyarch remained unfazed, did their thing, and brought World at War to gamers everywhere after around 2 years of development, over twice as long as they had to make CoD 3. Naturally, if Treyarch could turn around a brilliant game in 8 months, the extra development time on World at War proved that this was a studio who knew how to make one hell of a game, delivering a blisteringly visceral return to the franchise's World War II roots.
For lack of better words, there's always that sense of pressure to follow up sort of what has come before you. There's only so much out in the world that you can control, and you really kind of need to focus on sort of what you've done and what you're doing now. And we've said this before, is like really kind of focusing on doing the best work of your career, because if you're always focused on that, everything else just sort of melts into the background.
I absolutely loved Call of Duty World at War. In fact, I'm actually a bit disappointed it's not had a remaster or a remake already. I think it deserves it.
That campaign was one of the most influential campaigns that we've seen from a Call of Duty. Games like World War II are trying to replicate the essence of what made that time period so special.
The menu music is just sets the tone for this, like, I don't know, it's almost creepy. That woman singing and the headshot sounds, the gun sounds, everything about the audio work in that game is incredible.
Like CoD 3, World at War was a critical and commercial juggernaut. To date, World at War has shifted well over 15 million copies and was widely accepted as more than a worthy follow-up to Modern Warfare. But what World of War is really remembered for is something that was, at the time, considered a real departure for a franchise that always seemed to have one foot firmly planted in reality.
So for me, the first thing that really got me into playing Call of Duty was just the fact that all my friends were playing it around when Call of Duty World at War and Modern Warfare 2 came out. And then a friend of mine phoned me up one day, actually, and said, "Hey Milo, I've just beaten the World at War campaign, and there are zombies now, and I'm really scared. Do you want to come over and play?" And I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah, I do. That sounds incredible."
Well, the original zombies came from, really from the team. We were working hard on World at War at the time, and of course we'd been developing co-op for the first time in our history on that campaign. And as co-op kind of came to fruition, we started to play around with different modes, and some members of the team started prototyping this idea.
Along the way, there were these animations of, whenever you lit up opponents with your flamethrower, the animation of being on fire. People started tinkering around with them, and in the process of playing with those animations and sort of prototyping co-op gameplay within sort of a sandbox environment, you had a couple of different factors that came together to create, hey, it looks like zombies. And all of a sudden, there's this sort of this co-op experience that eventually morphs into what became known as the Easter egg unlock that was zombies for Call of Duty World at War.
When it came up, it was kind of like, we're heads down trying to ship the game, and didn't really have time to be, introducing new modes, especially on that scale. And but they put in a lot of time on weekends and after hours, and it started to catch on within the studio. Other team members started playing it, and so we knew it was going to be a hit, and we included it in that game for the first time as a sort of an Easter egg unlock once you finish the campaign. From there, it just took off. Eventually we opened it up to everybody, and then started developing DLC maps for it, and now you see the lore and the fiction around it has just been developed in a massive way over the years, and we have an amazing fan base. They're like so committed to this game mode.
While Zombies did go on to become a huge success, Treyarch and Activision actually did nothing to market World at War's mysterious secret mode at the time, instead opting to never talk about it and let players discover it on their own terms. As a result, it remained a genuine secret until players beat the campaign and unlocked the gruesome surprise mode.
Just imagine the meetings. You're like, hey, Call of Duty, we're going to introduce zombies, a mode that's based in zombies. So, nowadays you look at it and it's like, well, it makes sense. It's a core part of the game. But, you go back 10 years ago and that was kind of sounded like crazy talk to people.
It was safe to say that the success of World at War, especially the reaction to the zombies bonus mode, firmly established Treyarch as a key player in Call of Duty history. The next game in the lineage would be the Infinity Ward developed Modern Warfare 2, a fantastic Call of Duty that was loved by fans everywhere, but Treyarch were already hard at work creating their next massive contribution to the franchise. Rumours of a Call of Duty set during the Cold War circulated around the internet for at least a year before Black Ops was officially unveiled by Activision in 2010.
It was around 2010 when the studio really decided to focus solely on Call of Duty games. And Black Ops I was the first time that there were no other types of games in the mix. What I saw was a studio filled with creative professionals that really took that opportunity on their shoulders and did as much with it as possible.
With the full force of Treyarch behind it, and different teams dedicated to different modes, Black Ops was a behemoth of a game, storming onto the scene in 2010 and smashing day one sales for any Call of Duty title that had ever come before it. Players were thrown headfirst into a gritty Cold War era setting that focused on the covert adventures of a CIA agent, a campaign that is still adored by fans to this day.
I really liked the idea of Black Ops when I heard it was first announced that we were going to a sort of Cold War era, because there was obviously a lot of experimental weapons and secret missions. Of course, that's what Black Ops really is. And I remember actually seeing the first multiplayer trailer for Black Ops, and they had things like the camera spike. You could put down a wee camera and watch your flank. When I seen that, I knew they were going to go quite mad with equipment and weapons in that game, and it didn't disappoint.
So I would say the Black Ops I campaign is pretty much the best Call of Duty campaign of all time, and I think that if you asked pretty much anyone in the community as well, they'd say the same thing. It's fantastic.
Black Ops I and MW2 had the best campaign, and World at War. I can't. That's like the holy trinity right there. Like World at War, Black Ops I, MW2. You can't. I can't not include any of them because they're all just equally so good.
The story is masterful. The execution of the entire thing is fantastic. It's before Treyarch started to get a bit too crazy with their stories, which definitely happened in Black Ops III, and just the entire integration of Reznov and his relationship with Woods and with Mason is art. It honestly is.
Everybody's familiar with the Black Ops I box art. The sitting bull image is a pretty iconic shot. Along the way, there were these three conceptual shots that we liked, but for whatever reason, along the way, they just never made the final cut. It's a nice sort of exploration, nice meditation, and just how many people it takes to get to something that's this good, and the kind of collaboration that's required between developer and publisher, but also, what might have been.
Of course, we also got the triumphant return of a much deeper zombies, featuring properly fleshed out maps designed specifically for the undead slaying mode, including a number that were originally meant as DLC for World at War, but didn't quite make the cut. Oh, and the game included a zombies map set on the moon? Needless to say, we had never seen a Call of Duty game quite like this before.
And at this time, I wasn't really hugely into zombies. I thought it was cool that there was an Easter egg in World at War, but I was not really into zombies. And when you start throwing out names like Kino der Toten and Call of the Dead and all of the different maps on Black Ops I, that is really when it became popular.
Getting to the end of that zombies campaign and Moon at the end and blowing up the Earth and not knowing what the implications of that were going to be, that was phenomenal on its own. And then we had this entire campaign as well, and the multiplayer was really solid, so yeah, I was a happy man for sure.
In just 24 hours, Treyarch's newest game had shifted an incredible 5.6 million copies. After just 6 weeks in stores, Black Ops had made over $1 billion. With Black Ops a clear success, Treyarch had well and truly left their mark. When the time came to start work on a follow-up, a direct sequel was the only real choice, and development on Black Ops II began in earnest. Black Ops II began to nudge the franchise in bold new directions. With a near-future setting, the game took place during the Second Cold War of 2025. Players took on the role of the son of the first game's protagonist in a bleak dystopian thrill ride. Pushing Call of Duty further away from reality might have been a gamble, but it was one that paid off. Released in 2012, Black Ops II hit $1 billion in sales in just 15 days. For comparison, juggernaut blockbuster Avatar made the same amount in 17.
After Black Ops 2 came out, Treyarch became my personal favourite Call of Duty developer, and I'd say that's probably the case for a lot of people.
With Black Ops 2, there wasn't really much I didn't enjoy. I thought that Black Ops 2, for the time, was the best Call of Duty released, and that's from someone that started with CoD 4, so I'd played quite a few at that point.
But the scope and ambition of Black Ops didn't stop with the game's story and setting. Zombies was continuing to grow into its own hugely popular thing, with more maps than ever before. Fans were becoming seriously invested in the narrative, finding fun Easter eggs and flocking to YouTube to watch and discuss the zombies craze. If zombies had been popular when World at War was released, it was now a bona fide phenomenon. But it was around this time that something of a split occurred within the Treyarch Call of Duty universe.
The zombies mode in Black Ops 2 ended up being split in a really interesting way, because the release map Transit was creative directed by Jimmy Zielinski, who at the time had worked on a lot of the Black Ops 1 maps as well, but things went wrong somewhere in development, and Transit ended up being kind of a shell of a map.
Zielinski's work on Black Ops II was certainly more divisive than his previous Zombies offerings. Transit, for example, remains a hotly debated topic to this day, with many arguing that it offers plenty of redeemable features and at least tried something new, while others would suggest that it was just not very good.
Ooh, Transit. You're Transit. Oof. you gotta put the Roblox sound in there. We gotta get a rip in the chat for my boy Jimmy Zielinski.
Enter Jason Blundell, a man who had been with Treyarch since the days of Call of Duty 3, mostly working on the game's campaign modes and occasionally contributing to zombies. When Black Ops 2 rolled around, Blundell began working on zombies in a much more involved capacity than ever before, directing such maps as Mob of the Dead and Origins, with the former widely regarded by the community as one of the best zombies maps to date.
Mob of the Dead being one of Jason's first maps is also one of the community's favourite maps ever. Mob of the Dead is pretty much ubiquitously seen as a masterpiece, and we then had Buried afterwards, again from Jimmy, but Jimmy then left the company, and Jason was left with the reins in his control, and so he released Origins. Origins was a mind-blowing experience. It was a new storyline that no one really understood at the time, that then brought in a further new story when it ended, and that confused everyone, and it confuses us to this day. I mean, I have ideas about what's going on there, but it's still a mystery.
Because the original Zombies map was developed in sort of like, such a kind of organic way, we didn't have a whole lot of narrative built into it. There were some little Easter eggs that we planted here and there, and but the community just started to latch onto those Easter eggs, and they started to tell their own stories. They started to kind of have these, almost like conspiracy theories about what was happening, what the story was, which became really fun for us as developers, because we then started to build off of those ideas that the community was coming up with on their own. And then the lore of the universe just, kind of grew out of that. So it was a really cool way for us to sort of tell stories with our fans, which is like, it was just a really unique experience.
When you look at Origins and you look at Black Ops 3 and you see Shadows of Evil and all of these other maps like Der Eisendrache, like Jason Blundell has just, I don't know what it is about the maps that he works on, but every time he makes a map, it just comes out as art.
Black Ops 2 was Call of Duty at its peak. Just an absolute solid multiplayer, including a really good competitive multiplayer mode as well, which a lot of people will fondly remember. Zombies, of course, campaign as well. Everything about the game was just, peak Call of Duty in my opinion, and I really did enjoy it too.
Just picking up Black Ops 2 for the first time and jumping into multiplayer, I felt that at the time was the best Call of Duty, and I just had an absolute blast on Black Ops 2.
As we come down the hallway, we've got posters from various Zombies experiences, including Der Eisendrache, Zetsubo no Shima, Gorod Krovi, Revelations. I mean, everything that you've played over the course of the last 10 years. There's this one piece in particular that we really like. For the Origins experience, we worked with famed comic book artist Alex Ross, and we were able to work with Alex on these progression shots, and he's such a talented artist that it was really nice to kind of get a little bit of a window into how he worked and what that process looked like. And it's like whenever you look at something like the Black Ops I cover or something like this, that's just what it is, and you're not really privy to the creative process or the months that went into making it. And this is what I really like, because it really kind of shows off all of the work that goes into bringing something like this to life, because it's real easy to look at it and be like, oh, it's the 4 characters and there's a robot, it's Origins, and but there's so much more that goes into it.
Treyarch followed up Black Ops II with a third Black Ops title in 2015. With Ghosts and Advanced Warfare sandwiched between these two games, Call of Duty titles were undeniably taking more risks, moving further away from the World War II roots that had once defined the franchise. Perhaps a big part of this shift, this willingness to experiment with the CoD formula, can be attributed to Treyarch. Not just with their work on Black Ops, but with the Zombies mode, which by the time of Black Ops III had pretty much managed to become almost a completely separate game in its own right. Of course, experimentation is often fraught with risk, and there were elements of Black Ops III that weren't quite for everyone.
When I hopped on Black Ops 3 and I just felt the jumping and I saw the guns, there was something about it that just didn't feel... They took away the part of Call of Duty that made it feel like Call of Duty. And to me, like, that just kind of needs to be there, because it is still a Call of Duty, you know what? I kind of felt like I was playing like Crisis.
I thought, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I thought that, and I still think that Black Ops 3 is actually the best Call of Duty for multiplayer. And it's a kind of an unpopular opinion because of the boost jumping, the jetpack gameplay, the wall running, and all that. But I thought that while Advanced Warfare didn't really grab my interests with that, I thought that Treyarch again kind of just like perfected that formula. They did just enough with it where it was new and exciting and, different, but at the same time you still have the same core gameplay. It was basically just Black Ops 2 with advanced movement.
It's not just about being grounded. It's not the singular idea of being grounded that makes a Call of Duty special. Like, I can't put my finger on it, and it's no one thing. It's not just like one thing, and I know people are going to be like, it's this, it's this, it's this, but no, it's like collectively, it's all of those things.
I enjoyed Black Ops 3. It's not my favourite COD game, but it is my favourite of the futuristic Call of Duties. The COD games with jetpacks or exosuits. I thought Treyarch really nailed the movement aspect in the game. If you're going to have jetpacks and wall running, I think Treyarch's version of it was spot on. Yeah, I enjoyed Black Ops 3, and I sunk a decent amount of time into it, considering it isn't my favourite COD.
I don't know, like, it's just not the same. It just doesn't feel right.
So if you remember, we were talking about the I Am 8-Bit work that they did with our mural hallway. Well, those guys that were also pretty instrumental in helping out with our Zombies hallway. Because it was such a special experience in World at War, we figured that it deserved its own special hallway. The hallway was actually pretty easy to construct. What was pretty difficult were some of the blood stains. That took the interns weeks. I'm just kidding. No, that's... I Am 8-Bit really helped us put this hallway together, complete with blood stains to the boarded up windows. This hits all the right notes for Zombies fans. Now seriously, I need you to get rid of the interns thing.
2016's Infinite Warfare took Call of Duty further into science fiction territory than it had ever gone before, while 2017's World War II returned us to much more familiar territory. But in March of 2018, Treyarch unleashed the first teaser for their next entry in the CoD universe, Black Ops IV. It was perhaps something of a gamble to announce another Black Ops game after Black Ops III proved so divisive, but if we've learned one thing about Treyarch, it's that they're always at their absolute best when taking risks. A massive reveal event in LA 1 month later showed a Call of Duty game that was as familiar as it was completely new. Boots on the ground combat was present and correct, but there were definite sci-fi tinged influences in weapons, gameplay, and world.
Well, I think everyone kind of has that tense moment of like, you never quite know how the audience is going to react when you go out and announce your game for the first time, but there's always a lot of pomp and circumstance around it. It gives you this energy. It's exciting. It's thrilling. You don't know what's going to happen when you come out the other side of a reveal, but it really energizes the team. Like, you've been working on this game for 3 years, and you're putting your heart and soul into it, and just to see the fans get so excited by it is really, you know, it makes you feel good too.
It was revealed the game would feature no campaign, a first for the franchise, but it was clear that Treyarch were going all in on other areas. Not only will Black Ops IV have the biggest, most ambitious story-driven zombies mode to date, but we'll also be seeing a Battle Royale mode for the first time ever in the franchise.
So Blackout for me has exceeded all of my expectations. Realistically, I didn't really have very high hopes for Blackout. They hadn't shown us a trailer until really late. The initial reveal pretty much didn't say anything. It was just CG and Vaughn saying, "This is Blackout!" So I was kind of left with this feeling of, oh no, if they're not showing anything, that probably means that it's not finished, and launch now is in a month. What's gonna be in the game? I mean, hello? Can we see something? But it completely blew my expectations out of the water.
I absolutely loved the Blackout beta, and I always had faith that Treyarch could pull it off, but I don't think a lot of people did. And I think Treyarch have proved a lot of people wrong that they could pull off a Battle Royale, that Call of Duty can have a really solid Battle Royale game of its own.
Blackout was beyond anyone's expectations, and I think that everyone can agree to that. I mean, nobody thought that you could pull those graphics off in that world. I mean, it's really insane. Like, the size of the map and how much detail there is in it, and the fact, like, there's zombies locations in it. Like, he put zombies in a battle royale. Who does that?
With Blackout and Black Ops IV proving a hit with the community throughout the beta, Treyarch look like they're well placed to deliver yet another unforgettable Call of Duty adventure, and further cement their place as the most popular CoD developer in the hearts and minds of a huge chunk of the community. But will the team at Treyarch ever be content to rest on their laurels, or will they continue to take the franchise to strange, brave new heights? We think their past speaks for itself.
Zombies is a game mode that was not supposed to happen, and now has numbers, both on social media and in terms of sales, that would convince us that it's competing with multiplayer.
It's the same reason like Night of the Living Dead is still watched today. You know, it's just that it's a very simple concept, but it's done really, really well.
I don't think anyone really kind of understood what zombies would become, but the journey along the way has been tremendously fun, because it's really unlike anything I think the team has experienced in terms of development. Because, you know, here was this thing that was this Easter egg unlock experience that I'm not really sure anyone sat down to draw the long arc of story world building over a 10-year span, you know, and you know, it was this opportunity to kind of create a very unique dialogue with fans about sort of what they liked, what they wanted, and what elements of story they latched onto. You know, it's made for a very, very interesting, very dynamic development experience over the years.
The new one's got a whole new cast of characters, which is exciting for us because it lets us tell some new stories. You know, we've been telling stories around the Origins cast for so long that it's exciting for us just creatively to come up with a bunch of new stories and really take our players on a new journey.
With Black Ops IV finally here, a legion of devoted fans are all ready to jump in and fight friends across a massive Battle Royale map, slay zombies, and call in sick for the next few days. Call of Duty games are as regular as clockwork now, of course, but from the gritty realism of World War II to the covert thrills of Black Ops and all the gloriously over-the-top zombies nonsense in between, Treyarch have left an indelible mark on Call of Duty that sets them apart.
You know, every game that we release is the next proudest moment, because I think every development cycle we learn new things. The team pushes itself into new territory, we flex new creative muscles. I think that this team has been amazing, and for me, what I get the most pride out of is just seeing how the team develops and how the team executes on doing something bigger and better each time.
Talking about the long arc of Call of Duty history, it's been nothing short of a tremendous journey. How I've seen the studio grow over time has been tremendous. And the Treyarch that you see now, it's really amazing. And this is a group of creative professionals that has the ability, the confidence to work to outdo themselves time and time again. You know, you go back to your question about World at War coming off Call of Duty 4, and you know, it's like that wasn't the first challenge that the studio has ever seen, and there were others along the way. And you know, I mean, when you work in entertainment, when you make video games, it's not easy, but this is a group that makes it look like it is.
For a small studio that used to make their living on licensed games and obscure sports titles to have transformed into one of the biggest developers on the planet, not to mention part custodians of a juggernaut franchise, is truly remarkable. The exciting question now is where exactly will Treyarch take Call of Duty next? Back in 2003 when it all started, the notion of a military FPS that saw us fighting zombies on the moon was incomprehensible. The idea of exosuits, enhanced movement, and futuristic weapons in a franchise that was known for World War II games was mind-blowing. In spite of this, Treyarch have proven time and again that they're willing to try new things with a franchise that many people complain simply recycle the same game year on year. This is, of course, a lazy generalization, and one that is absolutely untrue in the case of Treyarch. If Treyarch can take us from yet another World War II shooter to one of the most exciting new Battle Royale modes that essentially celebrates all the studio has brought to the Call of Duty franchise over the years, and a mode that lets you fight zombies on the Titanic, then we can't wait to see where they go next. Truly, for Treyarch, the future is wide open.